Well, good afternoon and welcome to this Candidates Forum for Ward 6 Councilor at Large. The general municipal election will be held on Tuesday, November 7, and polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm Marlena O'Brien, a member of the League of Women Voters of Wellesley and a former member of the National Board of the League of Women Voters. It's my privilege to be moderating this excellent debate this evening. This is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Newton and the great NewTV. The League is responsible for communicating with candidates and organizing the format of this program and the questions, and NewTV's primary role is facilitating production and dissemination of the forums, and we're grateful to NewTV for that role. I will now read the League's vision statement on fair, respectful, and transparent elections in Newton. Quote, "We envision a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. To honor this vision and to protect the strength of the local democratic process, the League of Women Voters of Newton urges all residents involved in Newton's electoral process, whether as a voter, a supporter, an organizer, or a candidate, to encourage respect for candidates and voters in all that you say and do, to maintain a high level of integrity and reliability in all campaign activities, to ensure that communications are relevant, truthful, and fact-based, to become educated on the issues that are important to Newton's residents, to be open to honest debate, and finally, to maintain civility as we focus on our shared interest in Newton's future. As we encourage everyone to participate in our democracy, we likewise encourage all to show one another courtesy and deep respect when speaking, listening, online, and otherwise engaging, especially where there may be disagreement. And now on to our forum. Members of the League of Women Voters of Newton may become candidates for public office, please know. While the League encourages our members to become politically active, we have specific procedures in place to ensure the integrity of our forums and fulfill our commitment to being a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any political party or candidate. Please be assured that all efforts are made to create a wall between all the candidates and the League forum planning. This barrier specifically includes no access to forum questions. If you have a concern about this at all, please do not hesitate to contact the League at, and now I'm going to give you an email address, info@lwvnewton.org. Now in Newton, there are 2 city councilors per ward elected at large, and 1 city councilor per ward elected by voters only in that ward. This forum is for the 2 at-large councilor seats in Ward 6, elected by all Newton voters. The City Council has the power to make, amend, or repeal city ordinances, approve the city budget, approve the mayor's expenditure of funds, approve land use issues, and confirm the mayor's appointments to Newton boards and commissions. We will begin by meeting the 3 candidates for Ward 6 Councilor at Large in alphabetical order. Alicia Bowman has lived in Newton for 27 years and is currently an incumbent city councilor and community advocate. Victoria Danberg has lived in Newton for 46 years, is an incumbent city councilor and a healthcare manager. Alan Lobovits has lived in Newton for 40 years and is a retired pediatrician and chief medical officer of a multi-specialty medical group. We will pose questions that have been submitted prior to the forum in writing by members of the public. If you don't hear your particular question that you've submitted, It could be combined with other similar questions. Each candidate can respond to questions with a limit of 1.5 minutes. I'll decide as moderator if there is a need for any follow-up. All closing statements will be limited to 1 minute. Now let's go to the opening statements in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Alicia Bowman. Ms. Bowman.
Thank you. I'm excited to be running for re-election and look forward to tonight's debate and discussion of the issues facing Newton and the opportunities ahead. As someone who, as a counselor, I have met with residents and listened to them and understand their issues, and we share many of the same priorities. We want Newton to be a place where our children can return home and raise families of their own. We want Newton to be a place where teachers and firefighters can afford to live. And we want Newton to be a place where seniors feel welcome and want to live the rest of their lives here. In order to do this, we must build more housing, especially affordable housing. We must better support seniors and fully fund our excellent schools. We must spend more, invest more in our parks and our open spaces and our roads. And we must support our businesses, especially our local businesses, and build village centers that are vibrant and livable. And lastly, we must do more for climate action. I believe we can do all of these items while preserving our historic character of Newton and our wonderful green spaces that make the Garden City so unique. In my 4 years on the council, I've worked collaboratively with my fellow councilors to move Newton forward on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Danberg.
Thank you, and thank you very much to the League for sponsoring this forum. Campaign time has been a wonderful opportunity to be able to meet again with constituents and listen to them and see what's on their minds. My husband and I made our home here in Newton in 1977, our permanent and forever home. And we raised 3 children and they have all benefited from the wonderful Newton Public Schools. I have been a local activist all my life. I have been on the boards of many nonprofits here in this city. I've been on the board of the Newton Schools Foundation, the Newton History Museum, and I'm a founding member of the Newton Cultural Alliance that raised $8.5 million and restored the Nathaniel Allen House into the Nathaniel Allen Center in West Newton. I sit, for the city, I sit on, I chaired Real Property Reuse Committee, which led the process to purchase the armory from the state for $1 and turn it into 40 plus homes that are deeply affordable in our community. I'm also vice chairman of the Zoning and Planning Committee. I sit on public facilities. The Zoning and Planning Committee determines where and how we build. The Public Facilities Committee is...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Danberg. Dr. Lobovits.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm running for City Council because I want to give you, the citizens of Newton, a voice and a choice. As mentioned, I'm a pediatrician, a retired pediatrician, lived in Newton for 40 years, and our three children went to Newton South. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. My father was a World War II veteran who fought on Omaha Beach. My father and his brothers ran a small business started by my grandfather, an immigrant, and my mom was a volunteer for many charitable organizations. I developed an interest in healthcare delivery, which led to my role as chief medical officer and president of a large multi-specialty group. I've served on a number of nonprofit boards, including Atrius Health and the New England Center for Children. I've been the president of the Solomon Schechter Day School and a co-founder and president of Gann Academy. I've volunteered at the Mexican border to deliver health care to migrant children. I've studied the many challenges of Newton, especially the zoning and housing issue, and I've talked to many city leaders and residents.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Dr. Lobovits. Now we'll turn to our questions. And we're doing this in alternating order. I can assure you I've mapped it out so it's all fair and square. First, we'll go to Dr. Lobovits. What prompted you to run for City Council? And by the way, for each of these questions, 90-second max response. You're encouraged to be more brief than that, but you can take up to 90 seconds. Thank you.
Yes, I heard about the zoning, the plan, the rezoning, and the Village Center overlay plan, and I live in the Highlands, and I didn't know much about it. I went to a hearing of the Zoning and Planning Committee, and like hundreds of other people there, we were there primarily to learn about the issues and what was going on. I realized that the plan was quite complex, and most people were not aware of many of the details in the plan. And so I wanted to do something about it to educate the community and to learn more about it and to express any opinions or concerns about the plan. Somebody said to me the best way to do that would be to run for city office, because then the issues will come to public attention and people will have a choice if we have differences of opinion on that issue. And I decided to go forward and run for office.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman, what prompted you to run for City Council?
Sure. So I've lived in Newton 27 years. My husband grew up in Newton, the son of a Newton school teacher, and his father taught at Newton High and then Newton North for many years. And I was a longtime advocate to make our community more walkable and bikeable. And I too attended a meeting in 2019 where we were talking about the pattern book, which was part of the zoning effort, and was concerned when I heard our counselors then, who did not every counselor was willing to step up and say, we need more housing, and understand that we are in a housing crisis, we are in an environmental crisis, and we needed bold action. My in-laws, when they could no longer walk up the stairs of their beautiful Victorian in the Newton Highlands, we needed to move them someplace, and there was nowhere in Newton where it was safe for them to move since they could no longer drive. And it broke my father-in-law's heart to have to go into assisted living long before their time. If there simply had been a 28 Austin Street or a Trio at that time, there would have been a place for them. And in 2015, I became a housing advocate. And when I went to that zoning meeting in 2019 and felt that there could be another voice at the table reminding people that we have a housing crisis and we're not going to fix it without bold action, I decided to run.
Thank you, Ms. Danberg. No. Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Ms. Danberg.
Thank you. I ran for the first time in 2004 because at that time I remember walking around Newton Center and thinking, we really need to do something about this center. There's a sheet of asphalt in the middle that is a parking lot that we really need to make it look a lot better, and I think that I can help and do something about this, the look of Newton Center. When I ran and when I won, I realized that city councilors wear many, many hats. The first thing that I did was become chairman of the Newton Center Task Force, and we looked at the parking lot and all of the surroundings in Newton Center and drew up a plan as to what we could do and how long it would take and what the resources would be and where the resources could come from. As you can see, nothing has been done because the zoning really did not allow us to make any changes. I have also become interested in helping the disabled, in looking at our parks and open space, in affordable housing, I actually put through the first bike path in Newton Center, and little by little, we can together, if we work together, we can get all of these things done and I think housing is the most important one.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Danberg. You're actually up first on our next question. Question 2. How does the time and effort required to raise money detract from or augment a candidate's ability to spend time and energy actually interacting with voters?
Well, I would say that I don't spend a whole lot of time raising money for my own candidacy. What I spend my time doing is raising money for other organizations. I have raised money, as I say, I helped raise the $8.5 million that we needed to restore and preserve the Allen House in West Newton. I have raised money for Metco. I've raised money for the Newton Schools Foundation. I've raised money for the Newton History Museum, for the Boston Symphony, for the New Philharmonia, and for just about every organization that I have had any contact with, I have wound up raising funds for. If you're asking how raising funds for our own campaigns prevents us or deters us from getting together with and talking to constituents, I don't think that that's a problem in my camp anyway. I get out and talk to my constituents, I write to them, I return pretty much every single email that I get, I answer. I make every effort that I can to get to my constituents, find out what's on their minds, and help them in any way that I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Lobovits, same question. How does the time and effort required to raise money detract from or augment a candidate's ability to spend time and energy actually interacting with voters?
Well, I think those two things coincide, actually. The more that we interact with voters and we talk to them and they start to see our point of view, they understand how they can help us, or we explain how they can help our candidacy, and they naturally will provide funds or donate to a campaign if they support you. So I think the two are intimately connected, and it doesn't take a lot more effort to raise the funds beyond just connecting with the voters and talking to them about their concerns and listening to them. And if they naturally support you, one of the things that they understand is that you need financial support to run a campaign. So I don't see that as a big problem.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Bowman, same question. Would you like me to repeat the
No,
question?
I'm good, thank you. I agree with Dr. Lobovits that raising money is a matter of being organized and being willing to get out and talk to constituents and explain to them why you're running, explain to them what you know about the issues in the city of Newton and what your priorities are if you're elected, or in my case, re-elected. I have many strong supporters. I have a large number of donations, small, some $25, up to $500. It takes work, but it also forces you to pick up the phone, make coffee dates with friends, to send a lot of emails, show up at events, and people do support you when they support what you've done. And I think from my aspect, I have a large number of personal endorsers and people who've donated to my campaign. Every year, I do look that they donate in 2019 and 2021 and 2023, and I feel very proud of the work I've done and the support that comes from that. But a campaign is expensive, especially a citywide campaign. A mailing costs, could cost up to $12,000 to reach a large number of residents, and so fundraising is a necessary part of this job.
Thank you. We'll actually start with you, Ms. Bowman,
Sure.
for the next question. Which committees do you sit on, or would you like to sit on, and why?
All right, I sit on the perfect committees for me. I sit on land use, and so we're the special permit granting authority of the city. It is a hard work, and in busy months we have 3 meetings. Meetings frequently will go to 11 or sometimes midnight if we have some hot topics. One of the things I'm most proud about in my time on land use is I've made progress in getting creating more units that are universally designed, so fully accessible for people. Anytime there are 4 or more units, it's one of the first questions I ask of a developer is, can we get one of those units to be universally designed? Can you design it so that at least it could have an elevator adaptation later, items like that. And pushed before the city had adopted the expanded stretch code, I pushed for more energy efficiency, fully electric buildings with high performance systems. I also sit on public safety and transportation. So we talk about how to make our roads safer, working in conjunction with the Public Facilities Committee. And that's a good committee for me as a longtime bike advocate. And I also sit on many other appointed boards, including the Affordable Housing Trust and the Financial Review Board.
Thank you very much. Dr. Lobovits.
Well,
your
as I
turn.
mentioned before, my main interest is the zoning and housing issues, so I would like to serve on the Zoning and Planning Committee. I'm very concerned about the current plan that the majority of the City Council is supporting, that I mentioned before. I don't think that it will deliver what has been promised in a way. We've talked about affordable housing. There is minimal affordable housing in this plan for thousands of new units. And I think that we have to have a very specific plan for affordable housing and directed. We have to build affordable housing. The new plan won't do that. The second thing is the idea that people who are living near the T will substantially use, there will be a substantial increase in the number of people who use public transportation, I think actually is a myth. I think most of the people who move into the city will need and want cars, even if they use public transportation. And we haven't been looking at the downsides of this huge expansion in housing stock. Although I support the MBTA Communities Act and our compliance with that, I have issues with both that and the Village Center Plan.
Thank you. Ms. Danberg.
Yes, I sit on the 2 perfect committees for me also. I sit on zoning and planning, and I sit on public facilities. Public facilities has undergone in recent years an extensive and aggressive program for improving what you see above the streets and what you see below the streets. And above the streets, we are doing streets and roads. We are making sure that we are putting sidewalks. We're adding about 6 miles of sidewalk every year because it's important for the children to have sidewalks, and seniors and anybody that wants to walk to have sidewalks that are safe for them to walk on in summer and in winter. The Zoning and Planning Committee is a very important committee and probably the most active at this stage of the game, with the possible exception of land use. They meet more than we do. The Zoning and Planning Committee has been working for a couple of years now on planning for housing in the city and planning for rezoning, which hasn't been done since 1987. It's prior to 1987, we allowed 6 stories and we allowed housing, multi-housing anywhere in the city. That's what is the most important work that we can do at this point, and what is taking our time, and I think that's where we put our effort.
Thank you. Dr. Lobovits, we'll start with you on question 4. How would you support the appointment of a dedicated diversity, equity, and inclusion director?
Well, I think that those are very important values, and I think we do need somebody in the city to oversee, promoting those values. But I think we also have to take into consideration that the fact is that those are difficult things to execute, and there's a lot of sensitivity around this in the community. We can't be doctrinaire about it. We can't be We have to be listening to people about what that actually means and taking into account what people think about it. But overall, I would support efforts in that direction. I think that we have to define for ourselves first, I think, what all that means. And there has to be a process of community and neighborhood input into that. We can't have a czar that dictates what all that means. So together as a community, we have to define what those values are and then give direction to the person who might have that position. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Danberg.
DEI is a very, very important thing that we all need to embrace in our city. Stable housing and feeling comfortable in one's environment and feeling safe in our environment is the single biggest predictor of how a child will do in the rest of his life, his or her life. Number one, yes, we need stable housing, but we need to make sure that these children feel comfortable in their school surroundings, that they feel comfortable when they go out. We need to make sure that there are programs that include them, that children who might be coming in who do not live in Newton need to be included and need to feel that they are being treated equitably and respectfully in their school and in their play environment. DEI, as far as how we would hire a DEI person, I think I would look for somebody.
How would you support the appointment of a dedicated director?
How do we support the appointment? I would make sure that the salary was competitive, and make sure that person had good experience in the past.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman.
Thank you. So I agree with my fellow debaters here that DEI is an incredibly important initiative for us to be supporting in the city, and it's a very complex issue, as I believe we heard the doctor mention. I am committed to furthering DEI, and I do believe that hiring a director of DEI shows a first step in commitment. We can't stop there. We do need to hire somebody, I think, with immense experience. Newton is a complicated place, and a place where we have a lot of opinions and a lot going on. I think that it's, and I think that we have many departments in the city that need more guidance on DEI, and I think having a dedicated director of DEI will help move that forward. Because it is such a complex issue. But it is critical to making our community more diverse, which should be a goal, because diverse communities are better and stronger communities, and I welcome that diversity.
Very good.
Thank you.
And Ms. Danberg, we'll start with you for our next question. What do you think is the most important strategy that Newton can pursue to make this city affordable to live in?
The first thing that we need to do is to create more housing, because the biggest reason why any community is not affordable as far as housing is concerned is that there isn't enough of it. If we constrain the production of housing, we will simply drive the prices higher and higher. And in order to be able to create housing, we need to be able to zone for it. We need to be able to allow for multi-unit housing, because in the first place, there is no more space in Newton to build. We are either tearing down perfectly good homes to build mega houses, or we are building on land that probably shouldn't be built on, or that is very difficult to build on because of ledge and other things. So creating housing is what is going to bring down the rents. It's going to bring down the cost of housing itself. And if you look at, for example, Needham Street, when 800 units of housing go up on Needham Street. It's going to put the pressure on Avon and on itself because 300 units will be coming in across the street. That will help to bring the price of rental housing, and when people go into a rental house, they come out of another house that can be sold.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Danberg. Ms. Bowman, same question.
So we need to do everything. As we just heard from Councilor Danberg, we need to build more housing. Simply the shortage of the lack of building in the last 20 years and really 40 years has caused a problem. That housing will be different than the housing that exists primarily in Newton today, much more multifamily housing, maybe smaller units. We need to continue to support our inclusionary zoning ordinance that we have today. We're coming up for a look back on that. A strong IZ is great. We can't have it so strong that it discourages any development being done. But an inclusionary zoning ensures when we're building 7 or more units in the city on a project that we're at least getting some payment or some percentage of the units, 15% up to 20% of the units would be affordable at 65%, which is a really great number. And Newton has a very strong inclusionary zoning across Massachusetts. We need to continue to look at our accessory dwelling unit ordinance to understand what we can do to further support additional accessory dwelling units being built. We also need to look at the rules, and this is one of the things that I like about the village center zoning, is making the rules easier and more predictable so that we can attract more affordable housing developers. And lastly, we need to pursue with the federal government more money to support Section 8 vouchers and other funding that could be used to support affordable housing developers. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Lobovits, same question.
So as I mentioned before, I don't think increasing housing stock or housing units pushes prices down. There's a lot of evidence, both anecdotal but also in the literature, the architect literature, the urban planning literature, to show that places like Newton, towns like Newton, the price of housing actually goes up with increased units. And that's what we can expect. So the idea that it's not a supply and demand issue. It depends on the area that's being developed. And in Newton, in particular, housing prices and rental, both the cost of a house and rental for rental units will go up. In addition, the rental for commercial space for small businesses will also go up. With the village plan, the buildings will be torn down, and the small businesses that are there now will be forced out. And we know that the developers will increase the rent for the commercial space. So it'll be even harder for small businesses to exist. We know that TRIO has already applied for an amendment to allow bigger chains to occupy their commercial space.
Thank you. We will start with Ms. Bowman for our next question. How do you think we could encourage and improve the safety of walking and bicycling in Newton and increase the use of public transit?
Excellent.
So encouraging and improving safety and increasing the use of public transit.
Okay, great. This is how I got my start in Newton. As a young mom pushing a double stroller and realizing that there were many places that were missing sidewalks and curb cuts. From my home in Newton Center, being unable to walk to the library without having to veer out into busy roads. And met the mayor and was told that sidewalks were a choice. This was 20 years ago, a choice of residents to decide whether they wanted a sidewalk in front of their home. And today we're in a much different situation. Sidewalks are a matter of course. They're considered critical infrastructure. I went on to start Safe Routes to School to encourage children to walk and bike to school. And whenever I feel like we haven't made enough progress, I think about the fact that when I started, not many kids bike to school independently, even at the high school levels. Today, you routinely see 150 or more bikes parked at Newton North or Newton South, and it makes my heart feel good to see that. Mine and my first actions as city councilor was to get a budget resolution passed to support a bike and pedestrian master plan. I actually tried to make it a bike pedestrian accessibility plan, but the mayor chose to fund it around a bike and ped plan. And I'm actually on that committee that is working to identify the key roads that we need to make more bike friendly, hopefully put in as much protected, fully protected bike infrastructure, safer crossings. We've done a great job with some of the ARPA funds to identify RRFBs, which are rectangular rapid flashing beacons, the flashing lights that make it safer to cross the road, and I think we need more of that and a commitment to safer streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Danberg, same question.
Yes. Would you repeat the question one more time?
How do you think we could encourage and improve the safety of walking and bicycling in Newton and increase the use of public transit?
We have made huge strides in the past 10 years in doing that. About 10 years ago, in fact, before Councilor Bowman was a councilor, she worked with me to help find a way so that after 19 years of not having sidewalks cleared in the city, because the city no longer cleared them after Prop 2.5 came in, we got an ordinance and got the ordinance passed to requiring citizens to clear their sidewalks in the wintertime. And for that, I won the Golden Shoe Award in Boston. And I would have to say that Councilor Bowman and our other councilor, Councilor Downs, were a huge help in that. Bike lanes. I put in the first bike lane in Newton that runs along Beacon Street because I saw that this was the way of the future. We need to put in all the bike lanes we can. We need to put in protected bike lanes, and every person that we can get on a bicycle is helping not only themselves by reducing the amount of emissions in the world. They are also helping people who drive cars because a person on a bike is not driving a car. So we need curb cuts, we need hawk lights,
Thank you.
all of the above.
Thank you. Dr. Lobovits, same question.
Yeah, so I'm a bike rider myself, and so I very much support and encourage people to ride bikes. I think the main issue is safety. So we do have to create safe bike paths, not necessarily along main roads. We could create paths to main centers through side roads that might be safer. But I completely support these efforts that have been mentioned to increase bike ridership for all the reasons that have been said. Again, my main issue with all of this is safety. We have to ensure the safety of pedestrians and bike riders and drivers as well, because I think there's a risk of car accidents if we don't do this well. So I'm all in on the bike riding as long as it's safe.
Thank you. And we'll start with you for the next question, which has to do with the city's website. Citizens rely on the city's website for information. Many of you struggle, in the audience I'm sure, who's listening to us this evening, struggles to find it a helpful tool. Are you prepared to fund an overhaul of the website for the city? And why or why not?
So I think the website is a critical point of access for information, and we can't really have a democracy and an open society without the freedom and the free flow of information. So, and I think a critical way of people finding out information about the city and what's going on is the website. So yes, I would support a redo because I've heard so many complaints about it in people navigating it and trying to find the information that they're looking for. So yes, I would support a redo of the website.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman.
Yeah, so this city website was redone a few years ago, and it's a huge improvement over what it was, but certainly everything could use further improvement. I think one of the issues that I have with the city website as someone who spends a lot of time on it is because we're being fiscally conservative on our administration is that we rely on individual departments to maintain their pages. So they're not necessarily maintained the same way, department to department or committee to committee. But I think that it's really critical. I think things like residents don't understand there's a city calendar and then there's the electronic posting board, and those are two different calendars. One is official, the electronic posting board is a calendar of official meetings, where the city calendar has other events associated with the city, and people are frequently concerned about things like that. They have, but one of the huge improvements that's happened actually is with the recent NewGov system, has made it easier for people who are looking for information on special permits and other forms from the city. It's a plug and play in the website, and it works very well. Once you know that what you're looking for and you find it, it's a great resource. Thank you.
How about you, Ms. Danberg?
Yes, we've come a long way from 20 years ago when I first, 19 years ago actually, in '04, when I first came to the city. One of the problems that I see is that it is still difficult to navigate. I have spent a lot of time navigating through to try and see how people from the outside would have difficulty, and I've had difficulty myself in finding committees, in finding data that comes from committees, and getting postings from videos that get posted right away but are difficult to locate. I also think that across departments we need to establish a standard, and this is going to take more money than we're now putting into the website. I think that NewGov has been a huge improvement, but no system is any better than the material that is put into it. Data in is, I think they say garbage in, garbage out, and although we're a far cry from that and do much better than we did even 5 years ago, I think that yes, I would very much support a complete overhaul of the system.
Thank you. And we'll start with you for the next question, which is, strikes me as rather cerebral. What is the relationship between transparency and accountability, and how can the city improve on this relationship?
Well, in order to be accountable, you really have to be transparent, because the two words mean a very similar thing. Accountability is when you own up to what it is that you're doing, and you can explain what you're doing to people, and people understand the why and the how of what you're doing. And transparency in all of our dealings helps people to understand all of those things. When, for example, we have meetings at City Hall, we are not allowed prior to any meeting to have more than 3 people from any committee and discuss anything that has to do with city business. Well, I am always very careful, as are my colleagues, to make sure that city business does not get discussed outside of when the cameras and the recorders are on. I think that all business that is transpired, everything that we discuss needs to be on tape and needs to be on video, and it needs to be easily accessible to the public.
Thank you. Dr. Lobovits, the relationship between transparency and accountability, and how the city can improve on this relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're intimately connected. You can't be held accountable unless you're transparent, meaning you reveal all the facts, all the information, even if you might not agree with it. It might be negative, but you have to reveal it. You have an ethical responsibility to do that. That's what I call transparency. And you can only be held accountable if you are transparent. I think the other part of this is outreach. I think there's a failure, especially on big issues, to outreach to the communities. We have a very educated, knowledgeable, caring citizenship. And people in leadership have a responsibility to outreach, not just to say what they think, but to reach out and ask people what they think and allow them to ask questions. So I don't think transparency alone guarantees accountability. One has to be open to the public and be open to questions and sharing information in an honest, straightforward way without bias. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good, thank you. So I think this is a really important topic. When I first started on the council, we had our first leadership meeting, and I threw out the idea, and this was January 2020, about the idea that instead of just audio recording our meetings, that we video recorded them, and preferably live, so that people could participate if they could not attend in person. We have many young families and people with disabilities, or it's just a cold winter night and you know it's going to be a long meeting and you don't want to go to City Hall and sit on a hard bench. People thought I was a little crazy, but 3 months later, of course, COVID hit and our world changed, and I think that is a matter, that is a good thing that happened. You know, certainly every city council meeting and every important committee meeting is videotaped thanks to NewTV and made available to residents both in real time and then for people to go back later. It even helps for city councilors if you're not able to attend a meeting. It's much easier to watch a video than to listen to a 3-hour audio recording. Minutes, which are released as, by requirements, are not sufficient to get the information out there. I think facts is, of course, an important information. I think the city has done a pretty good job on zoning because you can see how the process has gone in the Village Center zoning, and all of that information is in one page, beginning to the end. And as a city councilor, when I first ran, I committed to regular updates so that people would know how I voted on things. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, speaking of cold and dark winter nights, the next question, which will begin with you, Ms.
Yes,
Bowman, has to do with the winter parking ban. What are your thoughts regarding the initiative to eliminate the winter parking ban?
So during COVID, we had a reprieve from the winter parking ban. People were very happy. And the next year, the mayor chose not to have the same reprieve in 2021. And we began to have people reach out and say, I think we should repeal the winter parking ban. I'm on record for saying that I have concerns about this as a citywide removing of a parking ban. We have many different parking requirements and densities across the city. We have many multiple family housing units that we have permitted with only one parking space per unit, and concerns that it may increase car ownership significantly. But I also understand that there are hardships. I've listened to people who needed overnight parking for an attendant, and I explained the process, and even actually on some of them helped reach out to the police for them to get a waiver for those positions. But we are faced with a different issue today. There has been a repeal effort to put an amendment, to put an item on the 2025 ballot to repeal the parking ban. And I believe that they will successfully gather all the signatures they need, and when it's put on the 2025 ballot, that it will be passed. So I think, given that, I was one of the few councilors that supported, let's go ahead and do a trial of it so we can gather the data, because I think we're better off gathering the data, and we can be prepared for the effect that if it does go into effect, what we might need to change. Thank you.
Dr. Lobovits.
So for some of the reasons that have been articulated, I'm opposed to the parking ban. I think that it gives allowance for people who have multiple cars to park on the streets. I've heard from residents who are very concerned, again, about the safety factor here, because if you have cars, especially lined up on either side of the street, and especially after a snowstorm when you can go back to park and you can't park as close to the curb, you have a risk of emergency vehicles, particularly fire engines, who can't get through. And somebody I spoke to that actually happened on the street, on his street. There were cars parked on both sides. A fire truck came to try to get to a certain location, and they couldn't get through. So again, I have grave safety concerns about this, and I think that especially since the new zoning plan at Wright does not require on-site parking, developers may be prone to provide less parking because they see that they can just say to people, you can park on the street. So I think there are serious problems with that, and I'm very concerned about the downstream effect of lifting the parking ban.
Thank you. And how do you feel about this, Ms. Danberg?
I have always felt that the issue of all-night parking is not a one-size-fits-all for the city. I think that there are areas of the city where there are lots of homes that were built without driveways, and they have no place to put their cars at night at any time during the year. I think that the city, in its efforts to help these people, offers for, I think it's a $25 fee, the ability to park in one of the city's parking lots all night. Now this helps, but it doesn't help everyone. For example, it was brought up that there are people who have helpers who need to park, or disabled people who need to park at their curb and are unable to negotiate, let's say, getting into their cars in the driveways. I think that all of these things can and should be taken care of. But I see grave dangers in encouraging more cars to be parked on our streets at all times of the year. And I think that it also encourages people to have more cars and to bring more cars into the city. I believe that it's a good thing to have a trial. I agree that it would probably pass because I think that the votes are there. But I think that we need to look at how we can tweak it so that it can fit every district of the city.
Thank you. Dr. Lobovits, we'll start with you for our next question about the environment. Engagement with our natural environment promotes good physical and mental health. What steps can the City Council take to make it easier for those who work and live in Newton to become greener?
Well, I think I would say three things about this. One is we have to protect our trees. We have to protect particularly older trees that provide the canopy that helps our environment, that cools the area around it, that soaks up water and reduces flooding. So there are many, and you mentioned the health benefits as well. So we need to protect our larger trees, especially the ones with the large canopies. It's very important to plant new trees, but those smaller trees take years to develop the canopy that is so valuable and so important in our environment, both our physical and our health environment and our mental health environment. The second thing is I do support in the ordinance that people are considering to strengthen the protection of our trees. The second thing is I do support the city's application for electrification of new buildings or buildings that are substantially going to be rebuilt. And I think that that will help as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Danberg.
Yes. I would, first of all, make sure that we add all the solar that we can add in this city. The city has added on its buildings solar roofing. We've added it into our parks. We've added into parking lots, rather. We've put some into our schools in the parking lots, and I think that all of that is good, and we need to encourage as much residential use of solar as possible. We need to electrify. We need to make sure that we reduce our gas emissions by converting to electric and using the heat pump and the geotechnology that is available to us to reduce the use of gas and oil and all fossil fuels. On gas, I think we need to, we have 750 gas leaks because we have very old infrastructure that the gas company is not taking enough, spending enough time or money in order to fix. The gas leaks are classified 1, 2, or 3. The 1s are taken care of right away. The 2s are looked at, and the 3s are ignored. I would also protect our trees. I think that's a very important thing. We have lost half of our trees in the past 40 years, and I would do stronger tree protection than we have now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman.
Sure. So I'm going to start in a little bit of a reverse order. So transportation, it is our -- source of greenhouse gases in Massachusetts, and it is the only sector that is growing. One of the most important things we can do to reduce miles traveled and greenhouse gases associated with transportation is to build walkable village centers. It's a strategy known and one of our most effective climate mitigation. We also should be supporting the transition of our school buses to be fully electric. This is not only a matter of better for the climate, it is better for the health of our students. 2, we need to support more energy efficient buildings. And yes, the fully electrification is really important. The transition of Newton and every community in Massachusetts off of the gas grid is really critical. Leaking gas not only is a health hazard and an environmental issue, it also is killing our trees. And certainly I support the maintenance of trees, and I'm a big fan of more street trees and making space, being creative about how we use our streets to create more spaces for trees themselves, to reduce heat islands, protect the pavement that's out there, and I think for all of those reasons.
Thank you. Well, this concludes our segment with the questions, and now we'll turn to closing statements. We'll start with Dr. Lobovits, and then turn to Ms. Danberg, and then Ms. Bowman. Thank you. Dr. Lobovits.
I hope this debate...
And each of these is 1 minute.
Right. I hope this debate has given you a sense of who I am, what my values are, what I stand for, and most of all, what I'll fight for. I'll fight for affordable housing, real affordable housing. I'll fight to protect our environment. I'll fight for to improve the quality of our schools. And I will fight to fund the important things that provide quality to our residents, the quality of life to our residents. We need to invest in that more, both for elderly and for young people. I've spoken to you tonight about my concerns about the zoning and planning plan, and those stand. I hope that you'll vote for me on November 7th, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman.
So I'm a longtime management consultant, which taught me to be a problem solver. I was an advocate in the city for 15 years, and I've developed a deep knowledge of Newton that has helped me get things done. And in the past 4 years, I've worked hard for the residents of Newton to represent them and to help move Newton forward on important issues. And this is why I'm endorsed by the Environmental League of Massachusetts and the Massachusetts Women's Political Caucus, and 23 elected and formerly elected officials, and over 200 community leaders and residents. I want to thank the League for sponsoring this debate and thank my fellow candidates, and I hope that you will vote for me on November 7th if you support moving Newton forward on issues of climate and housing and transportation. Thank you very much.
Very good. Ms. Danberg.
Thank you. The way things get done is through constructive and collaborative work. And that is something that I excel at, and I have always excelled at. And we can see the reverse in our federal government and the way it is functioning today. We need to electrify our future. We need to make sure that our environment is looked after. We need to make sure that our parks have more money and more resources given to them. This election is about what we're going to do to plan for our future. And the future means people. It means our youth, it means our seniors, it means our disabled, it means the employees in this city, 90% of whom do not live in this city, although they would love to live here. Thank you for your confidence in me for these past 10 terms, and I hope to earn your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you candidates. Thank you for the time and the energy and all you're doing to invest your time in helping grow the city of Newton. I'd also like to thank Sharon Roberts of the League of Women Voters, who is instrumental in making this evening happen. Thank you to Annette, our wonderful timer, to Eugene of NewTV, our great producer, to all the camera operators, and to all of you in the audience for tuning in and listening, considering carefully, and going out to vote on November 7th. The polls are open again from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And again, these candidates are running for Ward 6 City Councilor at Large, and all Newton voters may vote for 2 of these 3 candidates. Be sure to check the Newton League of Women Voters website at lwvnewton.org for more information about our forthcoming Voters Guide. If you don't know where your polling location is, you can call the Newton Election Commission or visit the city's website at newtonma.gov. And today's forum is a co-production of NewTV and the League of Women Voters of Newton, and any use or reuse of this program requires the approval of both NewTV and the League and must be shown in its entirety without any editing, and only after the program initially airs on NewTV. We appreciate your cooperation in this. NewTV is Newton's award-winning state-of-the-art media center specializing in television production, training, and building community partnerships. It is Newton's primary source of locally relevant programming. And the League itself is a nonpartisan political organization that promotes informed and active participation in government. Again, I'm Marlena O'Brien of the League of Women Voters, and wish you all a good evening. Thank you.